Who
Yeah.
knows? The UK market, and you mentioned Brexit, and yeah, if you want to, yeah, raise my hackles, yeah, mention Brexit. Yes, as a European, I personally feel aggrieved by Brexit, but hey, everyone had a vote, but there you go. But it has caused us in the UK to develop whole new um, lines of regulation. And we, from a GemCap in Ireland point of view, have just gone through the OFR. In fact, we're actually currently still in it, in getting the acceptance on the OFR. So our platform is getting accepted. It's been going there for several weeks now. We hope to hear very shortly. But again, for the benefit of our viewer, do you want to explain about the UK OFR regime? And also, you want to talk about consumer duty, because that is one of those things that we take on seriously when we talk to fund managers, and I will talk about that towards the end. But tell us about the UK OFR and what it means for
Yeah,
investors
I
or for
think that
investment managers.
basically your platform is very well positioned for this so far, for the very same reason that you sit in the UK and you know not only the UK market, but also the UK rules. Because I think that one of the issues for European managers wanting to stay in the UK market post-Brexit is that they were under the impression that nothing had changed since the times of the passport, right?
Yeah,
Instead, as a European manager, you are now facing issues and you are exposed to regulation that before wasn't a concern, like the financial promotion regime, right, which was typically for UK products and UK actors, now comes into play for UCITS as well. And I think also the issue of the value for money. Now we have seen few clients from Europe, from established markets, coming to us and asking for support on the recognition with an ongoing charge figure of 3%, right? And now basically the reality is that a regulator, when it comes to value for money, regulators are always very wary and they don't want to be seen as price regulators. But that type of figure is going to raise questions, right, on the actual value that you can bring to investors.
yeah.
And go ahead.
I was about to say that I'm a great believer in market forces. If people, and if you think about how you think where this is all going, it's all to protect consumers, the end consumer. That end consumer today tends to be so far down the chain because of platforms, be it banks, be it Clearstreams, or whatever it may be, that they will be an intermediated client. They'll have somebody between them and the fund, and as a consequence of that, they will be advised as to where to go to the fund, and the market force will effectively, because of performance, because of fees and charges, natural forces will push those funds out of the debate. So if there's a fund which is underperforming, has got high charges, it won't get chosen. It'll
Yeah,
become subscale and will then eventually become uneconomic and will be closed.
yeah.
I do understand where the regulator's coming from as far as stopping cowboys, but when did you last see a cowboy in the fund industry? Well, you could argue maybe Woodford was one, but that was don't get me started on Woodford. But it's very, very rare that there's an advisor or some advisory element within the value chain that an investor would get a poorly performing fund on a poor price. So yes, it's all very well bringing consumer duty, and we've had value assessments, all these sort of things we've had in the past. No one ever reads them. What was the point? Now, we as a board of the platform, we will do value assessments on the Irish, because we're obviously an Irish platform. You still have a board, obviously, for consumer duty on UK funds. in both cases, they will say this fund is underperforming. This fund is subscale. This fund has got high charges because the expense ratio is too high because the funds are, and they will naturally push the price down. Because their sole job is to represent the end consumer.
Yeah.
They don't represent the fund manager. And we've seen a lot of funds this year falling foul of consumer duty. And that's a natural progression. You actually look at the number of funds closing as a result of being subscale. That number has remained pretty constant over the years. It doesn't have peaks or troughs. It's pretty constant. And that's natural cycle of funds are being successful or not. And they get consolidated away, get merged away. So whilst I applaud the regulator, I think our industry is so mature, it will create the natural attrition rate that they're looking for. That's my view. I may be wrong.
No, I agree with you, and I like that you used this term attrition. And I think that basically Americans are going to do very well in this new climate, especially the ETFs that tends to be very, very competitive on price. And I think that in Europe there is generally, I agree with you on the fact that it's an issue of scale.
Yeah.
And sometimes the cost is justified. Well, the cost is a function of not having sufficient assets. But I don't think that the UK is the market to do that. And it's much more competitive. And I've seen clients having this challenge of having to understand what consumer duty meant for them, which before wasn't a concern, and what type of assessment on the value they had to put together.
Yeah, I would say, however, just my experience, and you probably have a similar experience. We've had a number of conversations with US-based managers who, when we explain the fact that the UK is a massively broke marketplace, it's oversupplied, that the pricing for funds is gone down. And we're not just talking about the investment management fee, but generally the consolidation on pricing has been significant over the last few years. So we do have to suddenly flag with managers, I say particularly in the US, where you say you can't get away with selling a fund on 150 bips, a global equity mandate, global small cap. You got to be sub 100, and in some cases a lot less than 100. We worked with a manager recently, and they had a global value fund that went out there, and it went out for 45 bips. Now, back in the day, that was fixed income, that was credit. Now it's equities. So there's been a big shift in those pricing. But again, that's the natural economics of the way this industry works. So which is good.
But let me ask, the US is also a big brand, low cost market, a little bit like the UK.
Vanguard.
Do you think that this US managers still believe that there is a mismatch and they can price higher their products because they are used to lower prices here already, right?
True. I mean, if you had people who, for whatever reason, say, "Oh, we want the fund to be cheaper," and you go, "Well, you're asking us to take 10 bips off the investment management fee, but actually this fund will outperform in good markets, hundreds of bips over the market. So, why are you chasing the 10 bips?" I think people focus on price more than they should do. I mean, you do need to be careful. If you've got two identical funds, you go for the cheaper one. But it's been rare you buy identical funds. So I think people need to be mindful of that. And I'm mindful that the US investors have had huge players. UK tends to be small, lots of smaller players out there.
Exactly.